Yo, what is good, you guys? Welcome to the video. Today, I'm going to teach you everything that I know about Gladiator for PvE. I think the main topics that we need to discuss in order for you to become a master Gladiator is A, like gear, right? Armor, weapons, um, ideal stats to look for, mana stones. We also need to discuss like stigmas, skill rotation. I think those are probably the main concepts that we want to discuss. I will also note that Gladiator will be getting a minor buff to several skills in this patch a couple hours after this video releases, which is today, the 16th in the US, 17th in Asia. The buffs, I think, for Gladiator are mostly focused around like Keen Strike and Rending Blow. So it's like our left click, right click combo. I think this is not only going to help us keep aggro a little bit more, so we're going to be a bit more of an effective tank if you don't have a Templar in the party, but it also just means more weaving damage for people who watch my animation canceling or weaving video. You know what this is. So, Rending Blow, Keen Strike, I think they're also giving a tweak to the percentages on Leaping Slam and Ruinous Blow, and a tweak to the damage buff effect for Counter Strike. Also getting a tweak to the Murderous proc from 5 stacks to 10 stacks. So this is kind of more like a rework or rebalance, I would say. I don't really like that passive anyway. It's not that great. It's honestly better for PvE than it is PvP, but sometimes in PvP it's useful. Whatever. Our impact hit, it's gonna scale differently, and we're also we have improvement to animations for Rending Blow and Keen Strike. Um, that's mostly the buffs that are incoming. So probably a few hours after you watch this video, you will see those buffs go live in the patch notes, and we will be discussing those in our live stream. All right, let's go ahead and hop in game. I'm gonna go ahead and hide my webcam just in case it gets in the way of anything. Okay, this is my character. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna go through how do I get into PvE spec, meaning when I go to do some PvE, what do I do? Before I do that though, I just want to show you guys my season rankings. I am fully free to play, and I have not spent a dollar on this game. I have not bought the sub. I have not bought Battle Pass. I have not bought a single thing. This is all free to play. However, I do play several hours a day, as mostly streaming is my main source of income until I start setting up my home office here in January. But as of right now, these are my ranks. Pretty high in PvP. For Transcendence, I'm rank 44, pretty high. Nightmare, I'm 270. Nightmare is kind of pay to win though. You get more tickets for buying the battle pass, so it's a little bit more difficult for me to keep up in this. Same thing for the. I kind of started the raid late, kind of started the Ascension trial a little late, but I think mostly what I've been pushing is Transcendence. So if you're gearing to try and hit top 100, top 50 in Transcendence and like the kind of the other hardcore PvE, this is definitely going to be for you. I will also notate that I have completed every single dungeon in the game in exploration mode, and I've completed every single dungeon in the game in conquest mode. The only content that I haven't done is Sanctuary, which at some point I will get to that. I am currently on floor 9 in Deus Research, and I'm currently on floor 8 in Shattered Arcanus. I think these, it's going to be possible for me to get to 10. However, I think I need to fine tune my build a little bit more, and like mostly because latency and ping makes it much harder. You have to really lock in when you have latency, but I'm not going to make any excuses. I think I can definitely get to 10 if I really lock in. Yeah, that is just my merits or my achievements. Now, if you want to be better than me, then I'm going to teach you everything that I know about Gladiator and what you need to know. Okay, so getting into PvE spec, Arcana cards are always first if you do have Arcana cards, these are really important. I think using Primal Vigor 4-piece set bonus is viable. However, Magic Armor 2-piece is very, very good. A 2-piece for PvP is probably best. If I was going full PvE in the game, I'd probably want 4-piece Magic Armor, because Magic Armor 4-piece set bonus will give more PvE defense, and honestly, it's more of a survival thing at floor 9 and above than it is damage. But for like most content, I would say Primal Vigor is going to be best in slot. But as I'm still working on my gold cards and multiple sets, I don't have multiple sets at the moment, but just as an FYI, it will be beneficial to build multiple Arcana sets. If you need a full Arcana guide, I did release that on my channel as well. All right, so I'll start with title. Right now, I'm using the Golden Glow title for PvE. This is going to be the most important PvE title. And then I am using, for my gear, you want to make sure you have the Revelation weapon damage boost amulet for PvE. Now, if you are a swiper, or if you have spent money on the game, if you can access the marketplace, it is going to be recommended that you go for True Dragon. However, if you are free to play like me, you essentially have to use PvP gear until they add in the nerf. It is just much more viable and ethical for you to use the PvP gear until they add in the nerf to the season. They said they were planning on changing PvP gear at some point next season. However, right now it is still more beneficial for you to use the PvP gear because it's easy resources and it's different from the resources you spend in PvE for energy. If you want a full gearing guide, then that is also on my channel. But if you look in the marketplace, you'll see actual weapons: Splendid White Dragon and True Dragon. The Splendid White Dragon is obviously better, but what makes this, like from True Dragon and up, are better than the Candace, because of the PvE damage boost. So this PvE damage boost is highly, highly, highly important for people who are dedicated PvEers. However, if you don't have access to marketplace, I do not recommend trying to craft or get to this gear. It is a huge time sink. Just as an FYI for people who do want the best in slot PvE gear. However, you can, like I said, get to top 100 and Transcendence and complete all the content in the game as long as you are having good upgrades to your gear. I am on plus 15 plus 2, meaning technically plus 17 on my weapon, plus 17 on my offhand. And if you look at the stats, I'm stacking might, crit attack, and I'm getting skills. Ideally, you'd probably want attack here if it's full PvE. Same thing for here. Accuracy for PvE is not that important. You'd probably want full damage. And just as another FYI, if you ever want to know what stats are available on an item so that you can roll for best in slot stats for damage, you're going to go to a similar item in the marketplace that's unsoul bound. You can look at the percentage and you can see if I was PvE only, I'd want weapon damage boost, I'd want might, I'd want attack, I'd want crit attack, and potentially my best in slot DPS skills. Those are the stats you're going to want to go for if you're mainly a PvE, or you're going to be going for all damage and attack. Okay, might is going to give you a percentage of your attack, and attack is going to boost your overall attack, which means the more attack you have, the more attack you gain from the percentage increase from might. I got my Nakum pieces. This came from Ferocious Horn. Again, it's like I'm rolling for very, very good stats, but if I was PvE only, it would be attack instead of accuracy. But accuracy is still relatively good stat overall. It's just not better than flat attack. But I will add that it is very hard sometimes to get attack on armor, even though it says it's mostly possible for a lot of pieces. It's very hard. So for shoulders, getting 3 passives, 4 passives is really, really, really best. Ideally, I would want to reroll this HP regen for another passive or for another useful stat. 3 passives on my chest piece. The evasion is not bad. I think block is better for Gladiator. I definitely think block is a better stat. You can stack more and you get more damage for having block from your passives. Using the Noble Belt, I don't really recommend leveling your accessories until you're like plus 15. Leveling these PvE accessories until you're plus 15 on your actual damage DPS accessories. You plus 15, plus 17 your weapons, and then you start plus 15ing your accessories. Rings, earrings, necklace. Okay? But again, just highlighting my gear. I'll do my best to add a link to my directly to the website where you can view my gear and my changes to my gear. But just highlighting again quickly, going over my pieces of gear. Just FYI, when in doubt, if you're PvEer, stack more damage. Like HP and block are relatively good, which you can also get block from dexterity. However, the more damage you have, the easier it is for you to hold aggro, and the more HP you're going to absorb based on attack, because all of our passives are based on HP absorption. Also using the PvE damage tolerance runes. These are pretty important. However, I don't really recommend going past +4 because they have a high chance to break and it becomes very difficult. Okay. That is my title. That is my gear. Other thing I want to add is that I did get some new wings and they came from Nightmare. These wings for free to play are very good because when you look at wings and you look at the Conquer wings, they give boss attack. So I have more boss attack for owning them and boss attack for equipping them. Okay, so this is going to give me more damage in PvE. So these are very important to equip these stats when I'm PvEing. You can equip a skin of whatever you want. However, equipping these stats is a little different. You got to make sure you equip both. So technically, if I wanted the equip effect of the David Wings, I can equip here, but I can still equip the skin of the one I want to show. So you need to make sure that you're using the best in slot PvE wings for PvE. The actual best in slot PvE wings. Conquer is good for free to play, but the actual best in slot PvE wings, in my opinion, are going to be the Forest or the Valkyron Sky Island wings. They give you 95 boss attack instead of 80, and then you get 30 for owning them. So honestly, collecting all the wings is still going to be important because you do get owned effects, but I think these are the best in slot wings to equip for PvE. They look kind of cool too. They're very unique, kind of like Druid vibes, but yeah, these are going to be very, very good for the boss damage boost and the boss attack for PvE. Okay. If you're looking for PvX wings, I do recommend the Dark Veil wings. These are probably best in slot for like overall PvE and PvP because they have attack bonus damage boost and they have boss defense, and you still get a decent owned effect of damage boost. So I'd say for PvX, this is probably one of the best. Yeah. Also, I will add these Nightmare wings are pretty sick as well. Okay, enough about wings. We've discussed gear, we've discussed titles, we've discussed Arcana cards. Now let's discuss skills. Okay, when I'm going into PvE, I really like having the absorb HP on my Mocking Blade. I think it's really important. I will add that the change to AoE on Leaping Slam is very, 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 very good. However, the damage tolerance upon using Leaping Slam is pretty important, and the chance to activate Ankle Slice is going to give you more damage in your rotation because Ankle Slice actually does a very good amount of damage in AoE, and you have a chance to reset. So if you get 2 resets on Ankle Slice, you are doing very, very, very good AoE damage while rooting enemies, which is pretty important for your group. So this is pretty good. However, like I said, the change to AoE is also relatively good, depending on the level of your Leaping Slam. And also, I will add, now that we are getting buffs to Keen Strike and Rending Blow, it is somewhat beneficial to have these skills at a high level. My Keen Strike is level 10 plus 6, and my Rending Blow is also 10 plus 4. The max damage boost is best in slot for DPS. If you want more survivability, you can put on the extra block. However, I think the max damage is best in slot for most situations. Again, I will add the absorb HP, and the multi-hit is best in slot for survivability and for damage. Very rarely do I use the MP restoration, because if you're weaving Keen Strike in and you have magic armor 2-piece set bonus on Arcana, it's very rare that you should have mana issues. Overhead slam, I'm again using the absorb HP in PvE, and I'm removing cooldown. In general, if you want more damage for the boss, I would recommend using the 7% chance to activate on attacking a boss, because this will allow you to reset, and overhead slam does a lot more damage than most of your other skills. Crushing wave reset spam is good, but overhead slam reset does a lot more damage. So aerial snare, same thing. You're going to be using the 5% chance to activate, and the 50% aerial snare cooldown for PvE. Same thing here. If you want the more damage for bosses, then you're going to be using the 7% chance to activate on attacking and an incapacitated immune target, meaning mostly bosses, because you can't really knock bosses down. This is going to give you the ability to still use these skills and get these resets. Rush Strike, I prefer using the restore stamina on hit for hardcore PvE, because having stamina is very important for dodging mechanics, and basically you have to shift dodge in order to use Rush Strike. So you're shift dodging for mobility and you're shift dodging for stamina now. You're actually gaining stamina upon using Rush Strike on a 10-second cooldown. It really keeps your stamina healthy. It's honestly very, 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 very good. Crushing Wave, the pool is good for mobs. However, if you're not fighting mobs, it's typically better to get the absorb HP. That way, every time you reset the skill, you are damage mitigating and absorbing HP when fighting a boss or anything other than packs of mobs. Ankle Slice, the reset is really good. The range is really good. If you want more damage and you don't really need the range, you could potentially use the extra ankle smash chain skill. However, I think in general, the extra range just allows you more flexibility when gathering packs of mobs or rotating. Now, Sword or Rampage is an amazing skill, and I think getting it to level 12 gives you a lot of extra damage. However, one thing that I've noticed, the higher rank that I get, most of the damage is done for me from my Rending Blow and my Keen Strike. So one thing that I've done is that I've moved a lot of the points from Sword or Rampage to Rending Blow and Keen Strike. I would recommend that if you don't PvP as much as I do, that you don't have as high of skill. Like, you could take out a little bit of skills from Ankle Slice, right? Skill points from Ankle Slice. I could probably bring down my overhead slam, because it's plus 17. I can bring this down to 16. I can keep this at 16. I could potentially bring this down to 16, and I could also bring this down to 16, and I would have the extra skill points to bring this up to 12. But because I PvP so much, that's specifically why I don't have Sword or Rampage at level 12 or higher, or ideally, like I said, level 16 is very good as well. I think level 12 is going to do a bit more damage because of the multi-hit. However, level 16 is really good because it gives you skill cooldown reduction whenever you do stagger the boss. When I'm doing Deus, he doesn't get staggered. So that's another reason why Sword or Rampage is not that useful for me. And that's one of the hardest dungeons when you're doing it at stage 9 and 8 and above, right? Sword or Rampage is useless there. For other bosses, though, most other bosses, having Sword or Rampage at level 12 or higher is probably recommended. Ruinous Blow, you only, like, the level 16 is not that good. I would say you only really need level 20 for PvE. Having the extra range is still good for PvE, because sometimes you'll use it as a re-engage. It does 13k damage, huge damage, and it gives you a damage bonus. Prepare for battle. It's going to give you 10% damage boost. This is very, very, very important when starting your overall DPS buff rotation. Defiance is useful to have the heal. Sometimes you will get CC'd at a boss, and having the heal and having the damage tolerance is absolutely necessary in every form of combat in this game. Just highlighting my passives, I think blood absorption is insanely good. However, again, I have taken out points for this more specifically because I wanted to put points into my other skills. However, if you don't have plus 10 blood absorption like me from other sources, you're probably gonna have to put more points into this to get a level 10 by default. Um, Identify weakness is BIS because it's gonna give you more crit attack, right? Protection armor is BIS because it's going to give you more block and HP absorbed on block, or HP restored on block. Survival stance is BIS because it's going to give you more max HP, meaning more HP absorbed on hit. Okay. Attack preparation is BIS, gives you more attack and more defense. These are like our most favorite buffs. Destructive impact is really good for PvP. It's decent in PvE, very decent, but it's nowhere near as good in PvE. Impact hit, again, it's good, not that great in PvE, but it is really, really useful in PvP, like really, really useful. But increase the damage boost on successful block. You still block in PvE, however, I think this is more of a situational buff. And then we have survive willpower, status effect resist, mostly for PvP, not really that good PvE. Murderous Burst is relatively good for AoE farming mobs, however, not that useful for bosses, so I don't really put a lot of points into this passive. I don't really care that much for it. Yeah. Now, my stigmas. I am using virtually these same stigmas in every form of combat, PvE and PvP. At my level of combat power with my cooldown reduction, which cooldown reduction does come from the illusion stat, okay? The illusion stat is very important because the illusion is going to give you cooldown reduction. Okay, so because of this level of cooldown reduction, I'm now at the point where I'm able to use buffs, and this lunge stance is 8 seconds shorter than it should be. Essentially, almost every time I need to use this buff, it is up. Like having almost 10 seconds cut off of your buff is kind of huge. So once you're at that point of having a good amount of cooldown reduction, I would highly, highly recommend starting to spec into these buffs. What's the most important buff? Well, for PvE specifically, I would say Blade Toss, you only need it level 5. If I was PvE like main, I would get Zykel's Blessing to 15 as soon as possible for the multi-hit chance. After Zykel's Blessing, you can get Tenaciousness to level 15 for the 20% attack. However, until you're able to get both of these level 15, it is relatively good to go 10, 5, 5, and then you could go 5 here on Lunge Stance for PvE specifically. Negative 20% MP consumed on all skills will allow you to spam more skills without needing to weave autos in for mana sustain, giving you more overall DPS. Okay. All right. So those are my stigmas. That's my gear. That's my setup. Let me go ahead and show you guys the full buff rotation. How are you going to start PvE when a fight starts? You're going to tell your party that you are providing them Zykel's Blessing, meaning your party is going to get more damage to the stagger gauge. So ideally, you want to use this at the beginning of the fight. That way you can do as much stagger damage as possible, and you continuously keep this up throughout the fight. You're going to lunge stance. I recommend you actually lunge stance before Zykel's Blessing because of the shorter cooldown on this skill, and because combat speed is going to increase up the rest of the animations of this combo. So lunge stance, Zykel's Blessing. You're going to Blade Toss to lower the defense of the boss, and you're going to Ruinous Blow in so you get prepared for battle damage boost. That's going to be the full buff rotation, okay? So it's going to look something like this. Okay, as you see, that already procs my overhead slam and my aerial snare. If you look at aerial snare and overhead slam, I'm getting 7k damage from aerial snare, and I'm getting 8k damage from an overhead slam, and this skill resets every hit with no cooldown. So that is how you're going to initiate fights. Almost every single time you will follow up with an aerial snare overhead slam. Okay, now let's say I'm actually in the fight and I'm on the boss. Well, what's my main rotation? if you're doing stagger damage, you're always going to use your stagger skills into your DPS resets, meaning Mocking Blade is going to deal 15 stagger damage. Okay, it's really very good. Leaping Slam does 10 stagger damage. It's pretty decent. Ankle Slice does 10 stagger damage. Crushing Wave only does 5 stagger damage. So you want to use your stagger skills to do more stagger gauge damage until you go back to your overall DPS resets. Okay, so it's going to look like Ruinous Blow into Mocking Blade, into, if your boss moves, Leaping Slam, and ankle Slice. You essentially want to time those skills for when the boss moves, if you know it's going to move. If not, you just want to do as much stagger damage as possible. So I'm in Mocking Blade, Leaping Slam, Ankle Slice, activates off Leaping Slam. Okay, now what is your standard DPS rotation after you've used all your stagger skills? Well, you are going to be maneuvering around the boss with Keen Strike, Rending Blow. On the first hit of Keen Strike, you can cancel into Rending Blow. This is going to look like left click, right click. If I show you guys the left click animation, it looks like this. Left click and a right click. Cancel looks like this. Right click looks like this, right? It's way faster if you left click and a right click. It's seamless. It's a full animation cancel. Again, if you need help learning the animation cancels, I did put a full guide on my YouTube channel. Okay, so while you're maneuvering around the boss, you are Keen Strike and a Rending Blow. Once the boss is stuck in an animation, or once you can get to a safe location behind the boss, you can Crushing Wave or a Keen Strike Crushing Wave if you're low on resources. But essentially, I will usually left click, right click into Crushing Wave, left click, right click, cancel Crushing Wave, left click, right click, cancel Crushing Wave. And once I get my overhead slam and aerial snare resets on the boss, again, I'm looking for an area of safety on the boss, right? And I'm going to use my aerial snare and my overhead slam when I have the ability to stop and avoid the boss's damage mech. It's very key that you learn to strafe with your left and right click, and you're only using your Crushing Wave and your overhead slam and your aerial snare when you have a window of safety, because they're going to lock you in an animation, meaning you're going to get hit if the boss is doing a damage mech. So you really have to learn the boss's damage mech in order to really time your other DPS skills. Okay, so a full like example of a full rotation from start to finish is gonna look something like this. All right, I think you guys get the point. And then after your blade toss is up, that's essentially when you can blade toss back into your stagger skills, Mocking Blow, Leaping Slam. Obviously, you're using Ruinous Blow off cooldown, and your filler skills are Keen Strike, Rending Blow, Crushing Wave. Don't sleep on the damage from Rending Blow and Keen Strike, though. It is really good damage in PvE, honestly, and it's very consistent. And resetting with Crushing Wave is also insanely good damage and provides you sustain. Okay. I really hope you guys appreciate the content. I really hope you guys drop a like, drop a subscribe, and I hope to see you in the stream. Thanks so much for watching the video. Peace and love, guys.